Hello, everybody. It's Zach here from RealEstateLicenseWizard.com. Today, we're doing part 2 of our 2020 real estate practice exam. This is our 2020 version. If you guys previously watched our 2019 videos, great. If not, I highly suggest you check those ones out as well. And if you haven't watched the first part of this one, please watch that one before you watch this one, because we're kind of in the midst of it. So, all right, let's jump into it and make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you guys have yet to. Really helps out the channel. All right, so buckle up. Let's go. So we just finished last one, 50 question. We did 50 questions, and the last question was question 50. So we're going to move on to question 51 now. All right, 51. An interest in real property, which is held for the duration of the life of a designated person, is called a, gives us 4 options: estate at will, fee simple to feasible, life estate, or a fee simple absolute. Oops, got those two mixed up there. But yeah, you guys get it. All right. So think that one over. Going to give us an opportunity to reread it, pause here, things like that. Did you guys figure it out? Okay, the correct answer for this one is a life estate. Yes, life estate. A life estate is an interest in real property which is held for the duration of the life of a designated person. It may be limited by the life of the person holding it or the life of another person. This designated person is called a life tenant. And there you go. All right, next question. 52. An example of functional obsolescence in real estate is, and it gives us 4 options: is it an agent not being able to sell a property? Is it a house in a lower class area? Is it a house not having a pool? Or is it outdated plumbing? Alrighty, so think that one over. If you guys remember the one before, we actually, in the video before, we did one on economic obsolescence. So keep that in mind as you're thinking over this question. Did you guys figure it out? You guys need a couple more seconds? I'm acting like I talking to somebody in the room. Okay, so for this one, you guys have to know what functional obsolescence is. And as I mentioned before, you did this one. We did do a question about economic obsolescence in the video before. I think it was like question, I don't know, like 20 or something. I have no idea. And that was the opposite of this one. So this is functional. That one was economic. So hopefully you guys didn't get that mixed up. The correct answer for this one is outdated plumbing. Yes, outdated plumbing. So functional obsolescence refers to loss of property due to an obsolete design feature. Outdated plumbing would be considered functionally obsolete because it is outdated. Now, who determines what is obsolete or not? Well, usually the buyer or homeowners. If a neighborhood is filled with houses with new bathrooms or new plumbing, and yours isn't, it would be considered functionally obsolete. Now, what's interesting is I have had this question before. When this question comes up, well, what if a bunch of pools, or I'm sorry, what if a bunch of houses have pools? If a house doesn't have a pool, would it be functionally obsolete? And the answer is yeah, pretty much. But when we're talking about these textbook examples, oftentimes, again, it's choose the best answer. So when we're talking generally speaking, outdated plumbing is going to be the best answer here, because in most neighborhoods, unless it's like the super 1%, the higher class, like all of them having pools, in most cases, it's going to be something like outdated plumbing. But obviously, yeah, there are higher instances of functional obsolescence. But again, best answer here would be outdated plumbing. All right, so 53. This approach determines what the property generates in profit for its owner or potential owner. Alrighty, interesting. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to think this one over, read it over, all that good stuff. Alrighty. You guys figure it out? Okay, so the correct answer for this one would be the income approach. So there was a question similarly to this one on the first half, but it's a little bit different. The wording is a little bit different. But basically, the income approach determines how much property generates income for its owner or potential income. And of course, it is used to calculate or identify the market value of the property. Yeah, pretty straightforward one. All right, 54. An example of a deed restriction is, and it gives us 4 options. Is it bonds, CCRs, house color, equity, or yeah, that's it. All right, so think that one over, and I'll give you guys the answer in a couple. Did you guys come up with it? Okay. So, an example of a deed restriction would be house color. Yes, house color. So, deed restrictions are limitations to the use of a property imposed by a past or current owner and are usually legally binding forever. Some common examples of deed restrictions are type and number of trees you could remove from the property, house color, as as it's in this question, window size, overall style, color, and construction materials used in the case of like a renovation, things like that. So that would be a deed restriction. Often deed restrictions are put in place if it's like a historical building, maybe the original owner or the new owner put some sort of deed restriction on it. That way the house would maintain its old pristine look, or maybe they want to keep it as historic as it could be. So that would be an example of a deed restriction would be used. All right. 55. A percentage lease is most commonly used in government-owned properties, shopping centers, townhouses, or apartments. So I'll give you guys an opportunity to think that one over. Okay, so this is kind of a tricky one. As I mentioned in our other videos, it's choose the best answer. That guys, I'm not doing this to make you upset, but they like to throw curveballs and they like to put answers that could be correct, but more than not are not. Or I'm sorry, that they are kind of correct, but they want the right one that's 100% right, 100% correct. So in this instance, it would be shopping centers. So let me explain why it's not townhouses or apartments. Okay. So percentage leases, obviously, they pertain to commercial real estate. A percentage lease is based on the percentage of monthly or annual gross sales made on the premises. So they're common in large retail stores, shopping centers, things like that. Now, I get this question all the time. And they're like, oh, well, technically, if you were let's just say you own this massive building, but you leased out this, section of the building to this particular person and he subleased it. So he was getting rent from a bunch of people. Couldn't that technically be, a percentage lease? Like couldn't you take a percentage of those rents because you're subleasing those properties to somebody else and then he's leasing them down below and etc. And that could technically work. Again, you could use a percentage lease for that. But as I mentioned, it says the most commonly used. So most commonly used, uh, as I was mentioning in the other video, you guys got to read the full question, the full sentence, whatever it is, and guys got to look at these words because it's not just saying hey, list, choose one of the following as an example, or what could potentially be an example. No, it's what is the most commonly used. And it's always going to be shopping centers, retail stores, like things like that. As of right now, that's where percentage leases come in, probably like 95 or 98% of the time are things like that. So keep that in mind. Again, I know this one can be kind of frustrating. I've gotten comments about this one, like, well, wait, well, what about this? And that's the explanation. Again, most commonly, just keep that in mind as you're going through these questions. It's the best answer. Okay, next one. 56. One of the main advantages of land trusts are the land is granted park level and can be tax deductible on a 1099, that the actual property owner can remain anonymous, the land remains in the government's hands, or renters are taxed less. Oh, okay, interesting. So, gonna give you guys an opportunity to think this one over, read it over, all the good stuff. Okay, did you guys figure it out? This is a pretty interesting concept. I always find this interesting personally, but the correct answer for this one is this one, that the actual property owner can remain anonymous. And here's why, and this is why I feel kind of find it interesting. So, a land trust is a legal agreement in which a property owner transfers the title to a property to a trustee. They trans they transfer it to a trustee. So the property owner is typically the beneficiary and directs the trustee in all manners relating to the property, as outlined by the trust agreement or deed. The property owner also retains all property rights, including the freedom to develop, rent, and sell the property. However, one of the main advantages is that the actual property owner can remain anonymous. It's true. Land trusts can not only bring some legal protection, but can also help the property owner negotiate prices if he or she is particularly wealthy, wants to remain anonymous. So I'm going to give you guys like the coolest example of this right now. And don't worry, I'll be quick and then we'll move on. Um, so did you guys know that Walt Disney actually used a trust to purchase the property in Florida? It's true. So he was well known at the time, and everyone knew that he was super rich. So he put a trust together so that he could buy all that property up without the people selling it being aware that it's Disney. Because if they knew it was Disney, then they could have been like, oh, well, we'll sell it for, double or triple the price because they know he's got the money. Well, no. I mean, that's one of the biggest advantages of having this trust is you can remain anonymous. That's what Disney did, and throughout history, a lot of big names, big wealthy people have done this, and it's also to kind of have some sort of protection. I mean, if you think about it, like if a celebrity wants to buy a house, they don't really want to publicly say that they bought the house, because then they might get weirdos or stalkers, things like that. So we went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I definitely think that's relevant to this question because that is one of the biggest, if not the biggest advantage of a trust, is that the property owner or the trustee, or I'm sorry, the beneficiary can remain anonymous. All right, next question. 57. A property's market value is $350,000. The assessment rate for the house is 15% with 27.50 mils. Find the annual property taxes. All right. Guess what, guys? We finally hit a math question. So I'm going to read you guys the answers. I'm going to give you guys a little extra time for this one so that you guys can bust out the math. So the correct, sorry, I'm sorry, not the correct. The four answers are $52,500, $9,625, $1,443.75, and $962.50. So again, I'm going to give you guys some extra time here to figure this one out. Bust out that pen and paper, do the math so you guys can, figure it out. So go ahead and give it a try. How's it coming, guys? Good? Hopefully. All right, I gave you guys some extra time. If you do need some more time, feel free to pause here. I know math can be a little bit time consuming and tricky to do, but yeah, feel free to pause here if you need more time. Other than that, I'm going to jump into the answer and the explanation. So, the correct answer for this one is the third option. It's $1,443.75. So, in this problem, we're looking for annual property taxes. So, first off, we have to find the assessed value. And of course, in order to do that, we take the market value, which is 350,000, and then we multiply it by the assessment rate, which in this problem is 15%. So it would be 350,000 times 0.15, which equals 52,500. Now the next step would be to utilize the mills. Now the mill rate is the amount of tax payable per dollar of the assessed value of a property. So we have to multiply the assessed value by the mill rate, which is 52,500 times 0.02750, which gives us that $1,433.75. So the annual property taxes on the property is that. It's that $1,443.75. So a long one, a math one, but yes, guys, math questions do come up on the exam, so you do need to be prepared for them, which I will talk about in one of our other videos, and maybe I'll do this for our math exam too, but we do have a math exam dedicated to math. If you guys haven't checked that out already, I highly encourage you to do. It's on our website, of course. But yeah, that's all for this one. Know your math. All right, next question. Oh, you know what I realized? I'm not even zoomed in here. I'm sorry, guys. There you go. I'll zoom in right here. Okay, so 58. The document that defines the relationship between the broker and the seller is and because there's four options here. Is it disclosure statement, purchase contract, exclusive agency contract, or listing agreement? Alrighty, so think that one over. Alrighty, did you guys figure it out? Correct answer for this one is the listing agreement. So again, look at this. You got to fully read these questions. The broker and the seller. So not the broker and the agent, not the seller and the buyer, not the, it's the broker and the seller. That is the listing agreement. So these are all contracts, and they're all legal documents, but it's the listing agreement that clearly defines the relationship between the broker and the seller. So keep that in mind. All right, 59. In the appraisal of a building constructed in the 1930s, the cost approach would be the least accurate method because of the difficulties in. Gives us four options. Is it estimating depreciation, estimating changes in the cost of construction, and estimating changes in the price of building materials? Is it estimating changes in the cost of construction, or is it estimating changes in the price of building materials, or also estimating depreciation? So think that one over, read it over if you need to, and give you guys an opportunity to pause here if you need to as well. All right, you guys figured it out? So it's not 2, 3, or 4. It's number 1. It's all of these things. Estimating depreciation, estimating changes in cost of construction, and changes in price of building materials. So that's why for older buildings, the cost approach is the least accurate because there's just so many things to factor in, which is why it's not really done much for older buildings, properties, things like that. All right, next question, 60. Subsurface rights are the rights to the trees, ferns, and other plants, the rights to use any rock, soil, or hard object, the rights to use the surface of the earth, or the rights to the natural resources lying below the earth's surface. All right, so think that one over, come up with a good answer. Alrighty. Did you guys figure it out? The correct answer for this one is the rights to the natural resources lying below the Earth's surface. Subsurface rights are the opposite of surface rights, which could come up on this exam, but both these terms do come up on the exam. So surface rights are the rights to use the surface of the Earth, while subsurface are the rights to the natural resources lying below the Earth's surface. Interestingly, an owner may transfer rights without transferring the subsurface rights. For example, a landowner can sell his rights to an oil or gas company in his land, but can still own the land itself. There you go. All right, 61. Typically, a warranty deed contains how many covenants? Is it eight or nine, 5 or 6, 3 or 4, or 2 or 3? All right, think about that one. All right. Hopefully you came up with that one. So the correct answer for this one is 5 or 6. That's right, 5 or 6. All right. So pretty much, if you guys didn't know what a covenant is, actually, I don't know if I want to say that because it might come up with a question later. But I'll just mention it. Don't listen if if you don't want the spoiler. But a warranty deed can include 6 forms of covenants of title, and basically these 6 covenants are 6 promises. So it's a legally binding promise, which is called a covenant, and it warranties to the grantee to agreeing to protect the grantee against prior claims and demands of all persons, whomsoever, in regards to the conveyed land. So it's a big mouthful. Basically, in a warranty deed, these things called covenants have 6 promises, and they're promises for the person that's gonna be, receiving the property, that the older person or the previous owner is guaranteeing that there's no issues. Like, you're gonna get the property and it's 100% yours. But yeah, so that's what that is. Next question. 62. A law that prohibits discrimination in the buying, selling, renting, or financing of housing. These laws prohibit discrimination based on race, religion, color, sex, disability, children, nationality, and more. Is it the Smart Opportunity Housing Act? Is it the Civil Rights of 1866 and 1964? The Civil Rights Acts of 1866 and 1964. I think I messed that one up on another video too. Is it the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or the ECOA, or the Fair Housing Act? All right, think that one over. Come up with your answer for that one. All right, you guys figure it out. So I see this one commonly mixed up. Some people want to say it's the Civil Rights Acts, because when they passed those laws, there was a lot of how do I want to say this? There was a lot of laws and things included in that to protect people, especially minorities and things like that. However, the specific for this question, the specific uh, law is the Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act, the Fair Housing Act is the act that does that. It's not the Civil Rights Act. It's not the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which we talked about earlier. Because again, we're talking about buying, selling, or renting or financing a house, and that is the Fair Housing Act. All right, next question, 63. As a licensed real estate agent, it is important to make sure, and it gives us 4 options, to never have an open house on the Sabbath or holy days. All clients are treated in the same fair and honest manner. Some clients are treated better than others. Clients are exchanged evenly. All right, I'm not even going to give you guys an opportunity to pause here. This one's pretty straightforward. I think this is one of those softball ones. Obviously, it's all clients are treated in the same fair and honest manner, but some people do question. They're like, oh, why do you even put these questions on here? Some of these are so easy. But listen, guys, they ask these type of questions. They do, because they're vetting you guys and everybody that takes the exam to make sure that you're an honest person and that you are going to treat your clients fairly, because you guys by definition are going to become agents and you're representing somebody in one of their most important transactions or events in their life, purchasing and selling a house. So you might think, you might say, oh yeah, this question, it's easy, and it is. It should be, but again, they do ask these type of questions because they want to make sure that you're a good person and that you're going to act as fairly and honest as possible. Yeah. Next question. 64. Which action is legal as a real estate agent? Antitrust laws in parentheses. Okay. Selling property listed as someone who resides in more than one state over. Conspiracy to boycott, dividing territories, or price fixing. Okay. All right. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to pause here, think it over, all that good stuff. All right. You guys figure it out? So if you guys remember from our, in the first 50 questions, we had a couple questions about antitrust laws, and price fixing and dividing territories were actually one of the answers. So that's one of those things, you could get lucky on the exam. That's why, don't be afraid to skip questions and come back, because often that's how you can kind of get some context clues. Like if you completely don't know an answer or a question, don't be afraid to skip it and come back, because sometimes, something will come out, information will come up, and then, kind of make the question easier. So for this one, it would be selling property you listed as someone who resides in more than one state over. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you sell property to. It matters if you sell property in another state. Yeah, you can't do that. If you have a license in Oklahoma, you can't sell a house in Ohio or whatever. But if someone from Ohio comes to Oklahoma and wants to buy a house in Oklahoma, they can do that. That's legal. But all these other ones, yeah, they're clear antitrust violations. And as I mentioned earlier, luckily the way this exam randomized the questions, you guys kind of already knew what price fixing and dividing territories were. But all right, next question. 65. Complete the following statement. The rescission of a contract occurs when, and it gives 4 options. There is an agreement between the contracting parties to waive all the remaining duties, terminate the contract. Is it one party to wants to waive all? I think there's a misprint there. One party wants to waive all the remaining duties and wants to terminate the contract, or a contract is classified as unenforceable and terminated, and a contract is signed. All right, so I can give you guys an opportunity to do that right there. Come up with the answer. Alrighty, so the correct answer for this one is there's an agreement between the contract parties to waive all the remaining duties and terminate the contract. Yes, that is when that's when a rescission of a contract occurs. Basically, they waive all the duties and they terminate the contract. Basically, it's returning the parties to the same legal position they were in beforehand. Simple as that. All right, let's do the next one. All right, market value is pretty straightforward, and it says the price the property is sold for, or an estimate of the present property plus future potential. Is it the price set by an agent using the house history to determine its worth? Is it the price set by the home purchaser, or is it the price set by the homeowner? All right, interesting. So go ahead and come up with your educated uh, answer, I guess, for this one. Gonna give you guys, some time here. All right, so the correct answer for this one is the first one: the price the property is sold for, or an estimate of the present, property plus future potential. So you'll hear a lot of people use the word market value or market price, and that basically just means the selling price of the property. So if your home sells for, $250,000, the market value is $250,000. And I actually had a comment about this one because this was one of the questions from the 2019 video, and someone was asking, that they were a little bit confused with the terminology with market value and market price. And I will say this, guys, it does depend on what background you're coming from, whether it's real estate, investing, things like that, because uh, price and value have 2 different meanings when it comes to like stocks as well as like investing. But when we're talking about the traditional real estate market value versus market price. That's what we're talking about here, and that's going to be the price the property is sold for, or an estimate of the present property plus future potential. All right, next one. 67. Retroactive liability means the last 3 previous owners also can be held accountable for the hazardous waste site. The last 2 previous owners can be held accountable for the hazardous waste site. All previous owners also can be held accountable for the previous waste site, or all previous owners are not held accountable for the hazardous waste site. All right, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to pause here, think it over. Okay, did you guys come up with your answer? So for this one, do you guys remember? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. When I was talking about CERCLA and the SARA, from earlier, that's when that retroactive liability comes into play. So remember when I was like, oh yeah, like before then, you could buy a house and you wouldn't even be liable. Well, retroactive liability came into play, um, and that basically means that which is our answer, all previous owners can be held accountable for hazardous waste. So again, yeah, as you can see here, it says connection with Circle and Superfund, which we were talking about earlier. But yeah, it just means all previous owners can be held accountable for the hazardous waste site. All right, next one, 68. A buyer of a home was not informed that this a buyer of a home was not informed that his house was on a septic tank system. The buyer has a right to nothing if the contract is signed, sue the title company for failure to discover the problem, sue the broker for his license, or rescind the contract. Alrighty. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to think this one over. All right, you guys figure it out? Rescind the contract is our answer here. So an agent must reveal all property facts and defects known as the point of sale. Or I'm sorry, at the point of sale. A failure to disclose information may allow the buyer to rescind the contract. It's true. Pretty straightforward. Our next one, 69. All right, a licensee is commonly called a third-party person, a real estate agent, a homeowner, or a renter. All right, think that one over. Did you guys come up with it? All right, it's a real estate agent, yes. And you guys are going to see this all the time on the exam. A licensee is referred to as a real estate agent because guess what? They hold a license. But yeah, this is obviously a real estate agent starting point for most real estate professionals. But yeah, agents are legally called a licensee or license holder. You'll see that all the time. All right, 70. Eminent domain is commonly used for, because there's 4 options: private rental properties, infrastructure, mortgages, or banking. All right, think that one over. All right, you guys figure it out? All right, the correct answer for this one is infrastructure. Yes. So if you guys haven't watched our video on eminent domain, we take a deep dive on all that good stuff. And of course, we were talking about eminent domain earlier, but it's used for things like highways, pipelines, railroads, stuff like that. And of course, as I mentioned before, the 5th and 14th Amendments permit the U.S. government, to exercise the power of eminent domain. All right, next one. 71. Under the terms in a mortgage, the lender must be paid in full if the property is sold to another person. This is known as the Habendum Clause, Acceleration Clause, the Dominant Clause, or the Alienation Clause. All right, interesting. So, give you guys an opportunity to pause here, think that one over. Did you guys figure it out? Hopefully. Okay. So for this one, You guys have to know your contract clauses. Yes, you do. So it's super important to understand contract clauses. That's why we actually did a video on all of our contract clauses. And basically, I went through and I discussed, you know, which, um, which contract clause, you know, which contract clause is which. Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic here. As well as, take a deep dive and when these come up, things like that. But when we're talking about this specific one, under the terms of a mortgage, the lender must be paid in full if the property is sold to another person. This is known as, do you guys remember? It was the acceleration clause. Oh, oops, I mean the alienation clause. Look at that. I even made a mistake. So, the alienation clause is a contract provision that comes into effect when ownership of a specified asset is transferred or sold. It ensures that a property always has its owner. I'm sorry, I'm messing up. It ensures that if a transfer of property happens, the lender is paid in full from its original borrower. See, even I get the acceleration and alienation clause mixed up because they are tricky. I mean, they've both got A names, so it can be a little bit complicated to remember all of them. But yeah, for this one, again, alienation clause. But yeah, don't mess up like I did. Okay, it is the blank duty to explain the purchase agreement and not mislead any parties. Is it the homeowners, the agents, sellers, or buyers? All right. Think that one over. Come up with a good educated guess or answer. All right, you guys figure it out? This one's going to be the agents, guys. It's important that the buyer and seller clearly understand the document as it becomes legally binding as soon as both parties sign. So explains this. I explained this in our last video. Um, I was talking about just how important it is to explain to your clients, what they're about to sign because it's a legally binding contract. Like they could seriously be in a legal problem or legal trouble if they don't follow the rules. And, again, that's super important to understand. So, you have to stress that. And it is your responsibility as an agent to address that and explain it to them. Next question, 73. All right, find the annual GRM, a 9-unit building in Cleveland, Ohio, with an asking price of $500,000 and the gross rents of $75,000. All right, another math question. It gives us 4 options: 7.66, 6.66, 6, and 5.66. So I'm going to give you guys an opportunity here to figure that one out. And just like the other one with the math problem, I'm going to give you guys just a little bit more extra time so you can do the math on this one. All right, good luck. Alrighty. If you guys need more time, uh, you know, feel free to pause. Don't be afraid to. Math questions do take a little bit longer. They are a little difficult. So the correct answer for this one is going to be 6.66. So if you guys didn't know how to do the gross rent multiplier formula, it's just basically gross rent multiplier equals property price divided by gross rental income. So in our case, that would be, $500,000 divided by $75,000, which equals 6.66. All right, there you go. Next question. Okay, 74. Compliance with zoning ordinances is monitored through the insurance of, is it zoning permits, covenants, CCRs, or buffer zones? Alrighty, so think that one over. Come up with a good answer. Give you guys a little time here. All right, hopefully you guys came up with a good answer. The correct answer for this one is zoning permits. Yes, so listen, compliance with zoning ordinances is monitored through the issuance of zoning permits, where the property owner or developer cannot substantially alter the use of the property without getting a zoning permit, which will not be issued unless the proposed development conforms to the zoning ordinance. Zoning permits are usually required before building permits can be issued. So, super important to understand, and definitely this is one of the ones that comes up all the time on the exam. 75. Okay, a pretty basic one. Real property is four options. Is it bonds or intellectual property? All trees or bushes connected to land, all things removable like clothes, lawnmowers, couches, TVs, and furniture, or all things attached to the land and all the legal rights to it. All right, so think that one over. All right, did you guys come up with it? Real property. When you think of real property, you want to think of things like attached to the land, and that is our correct answer. So real property is all things attached to the land. Real property is usually things like, the home itself or buildings within the property line. Now there are some exceptions of items that can be moved but are still real property, like businesses, and business-related items, like mineral rights and things like that. But yeah, that's real property. All right, next one, 76. Okay, allowed greater control by EPA to control contaminant levels, take legal action against public water authorities for violations, and require periodic testing, water testing, and notification to state authority and homeowners if contaminated. Okay, because the four options: EPA, CWA, CDWA, or SARA. All right, think that one over. All right, you guys come up with it? Great. Okay, so remember when we were talking about, I think it was in the last video now, um, there was there's so many laws and acts that you need to remember for the exam. And I know it's tough. But it's super important because it shows up all the time. And in this instance, we're talking about the EPA, uh, but the correct answer for this one is the CWA. So that's the Safe Drinking Water Act. So I guess when you hear periodic water testing, you know, maybe you could put two and two together. That it's a Safe Drinking Water Act. But yeah, that what it did was it just allowed greater control by the EPA to control contaminant levels, do testing, things like that. So that's the correct answer for that one. All right, 77. An example of economic obsolescence in real estate is sellers not being able to afford property due to economic factors, a noisy highway built right next to your home, a pool built at your mother's house, or old kitchen cabinets. All right, another economic obsolescence question. So these do come up on the exam pretty often. As I mentioned, depreciation is a huge section of the exam. So come up with the answer. Think this one over. Did you guys figure it out? Okay. So correct answer for this one is a noisy highway built right next to your home. Yes. So you might see this here, you see the due to economic factors, and you might think that that's the correct answer, but no, it's this one, a noisy highway built right next to your home. But yeah, that's economic obsolescence by definition. Again, as was mentioned earlier, uh, depreciation is such a huge part of the exam. It comes up all the time. You need to know not only the definitions of all the forms of depreciation, but examples of all the forms of depreciation. So all right, 78. What hazardous substance is an odorless, colorless gas that can cause death within hours of inhalation? Is it carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, chlorine, or radon? All right, so I'll give you guys an opportunity to pause here, think it over. Did you guys figure it out? Hopefully. Okay, so this one is carbon monoxide. So remember we had the radon one, I think earlier in the first 50. Uh, people ask me like, how can you tell the difference? Well, radon normally comes from, basements, things like that, cracked places coming to the earth. And the other thing is, while radon is extremely, extremely dangerous, carbon monoxide can cause death within hours. And that's the key difference between this question and the other one. Whereas radon's more of a slower thing. But again, not undervaluing how dangerous it is. These are both extremely uh, bad things. If there's an issue, you need to get that taken care of as soon as possible. But that's how to tell the distinction, at least within these two questions and on the exam. All right, next question, 79. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibits discrimination in real estate based on race and gender, religion, gender, or race. Alrighty, think that one over. Come up with the answer. Alrighty. Did you guys come up with it? Got to know your history a little bit for this one. Correct answer for this one is race. So, it's just race though, and that's the key takeaway. Sadly, is in 1866, gender wasn't an important issue yet. Neither was the freedom of religion, things like that. The discrimination of race, gender, and religion are all illegal today, but back then it was just race is what was the big act of 1866. So, all right, next question. Which of the following is a private land use control? Taxation, deed restrictions, building codes, or zoning? Alrighty, so think this one over, come up with the answer. Did you guys come up with it? Okay, remember what I taught you guys in the last 50? Private. Private. When you're thinking private, don't think government. Remember, that's public. Private. Privately owned. So that is going to be deed restrictions. Yes, deed restrictions. Because think about it. Zoning is public. Taxation is public. And building codes are all public. Building codes are, handled by the local government. Zoning is by zoning ordinances and the government, and taxation obviously handled by the government. So deed restrictions is our correct answer there. All right, 81. A property owner enters into a listing agreement with an agent. Another agent obtains a buyer for the house, and the first agent does not receive a commission. The listing agreement between the first agent and the property owner was probably was it an exclusive right to sell listing? Was it a public auction listing? Was it a closed listing or an open listing? All right, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to pause here, think it over. All right, did you guys figure it out? Hopefully. Correct answer for this one is an open listing. So open listings, guys, they're truly open. Sellers might consider an open listing if there are a lot of buyers in the marketplace. An open listing is when an agent or broker can participate in the listing and is entitled to a commission if he or she produces a sale. Since the listing agreement between the first agent wasn't met, it had to be an open listing because another agent obtained the buyer. Did you guys get that? Hopefully. That one's pretty straightforward, but again, you have to understand the different types of listings to fully get that one. All right, 82. Tenants by the entirety and community property both generally pertain to small businesses, spouses, cooperations, or business owners. All right, so think about that one. Come up with the answer. you guys figure it out? Hopefully. So, you guys should know this. Hopefully you do. If not, you're going to learn. When we're talking about community property and tenants by the entirety, we're almost always talking about spouses. Spouses. Because those are the two separate ways that ownership is divided and organized in different states. So, tenants by entirety is a special form of co-ownership used in some states to allow a husband or wife to inherit the other spouse's ownership interest upon death, while community property laws are based on the idea that husband and wife are equal, separate partners rather than one whole, like tenants by the entirety. But both terms, again, pertain to spouses. So, super important to understand there. 83. Okay, an example of real property is garage, wheelchair, couch, or a 4K HD TV. All right, think that one over. All right, did you guys come up with it? Correct answer for this one is a garage. So remember, personal property are things removable, like like a desk, TV, couch, or wheelchair. Those are all personal property. Real property are things attached to the land, garage, houses, or like I mentioned before, there are some exceptions that are like business related items, but again, it doesn't mention that any of these are business related, so it would be garage for this one. All right, 84. In real estate, alienation is best described as the act of transferring bonds, cash, or money, or any form of currency in escrow, the act of transferring title, ownership, an estate, or an interest in real estate from one party to another, changing a property from one zoning district to another, or denying use of an easement. Alrighty, think that one over. Come up with the answer for that one. All right, you guys figure it out? So, the correct answer for this one is the second one. It's the act of transferring title, ownership, an estate, or interest in real estate from one party to another. So by definition, that's alienation. Obviously, we were talking about the alienation clauses earlier. That's separate to just the regular alienation definition. So just keep that in mind as well when you are answering a general question about alienation. All right. 85. The bundle of rights include: is it possession, control, exclusion, enjoyment, disposition? Is it possession, control, illusion, enjoyment, disposition? Is it possession, ability, exclusion, enjoyment, disposition? Is it possession, ability, illusion, enjoyment, and disposition? So go ahead and think about that one and come up with a good answer. Okay. Did you guys figure it out? Correct answer for this one is the first option. It's possession, control, exclusion, enjoyment, and disposition. So pretty much, if you guys didn't know already, owning real estate carries with a bundle of rights. It's like a bundle of sticks. You can give each stick away if you really want to, or you can lease it, things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about the bundle rights. But you do need to know what they are and what they include. So that's it for that one. 86. Okay. Restrictive covenants, are also known as CDOs, bonds, CCRs, or deed restrictions. Okay, so think that one over, come up with the answer, reread it if you need to. Okay, did you guys figure it out? Hopefully. So the correct answer for this one is CCRs. Yes, some people put deed restrictions, but it's different. Restrictive covenants, also known as CCRs, stand for conditions, covenants, and restrictions The main purpose of a CCR is to maintain the look and feel of a community. CCRs limit the use of particular property for like a condominium, subdivision, things like that. So remember earlier I was talking about deed restrictions briefly, whereas deed restriction might be for like a historical property where they want to keep the integrity or the style throughout the years. They want the same materials. Well, CCR is more or less like a condominium. Like if you're living in a big area with a bunch of people, and they have CCRs on there to make sure you're not growing a tree in the middle of the yard that would throw off like everyone else's style and things like that. So that's the difference between CCRs and deed restrictions, but they're also known as restrictive covenants. All right, 87. What determines who pays for what and how much for at closing? Is it proration? Is it the buyer? Is it the seller? Or is it the government? Go ahead and think that one over. All right, you guys figure it out? Cool. Correct answer for this one is proration. Yes. So proration is the allocation or division of money items at closing. Proration mainly comes into play when a seller prepays for home taxes for the year. Because they paid for the full year and are selling the property, the buyer will then owe the seller the remaining months of taxes. That's how proration works. There's actually proration math problems that do come up, so keep that in mind. But yeah, that's proration. Super important concept to understand. All right, 88. A married couple intends to purchase property, but only if they can qualify for a mortgage loan at a reasonable rate. The qualification is it a pre-mortgage qualification agreement? Is it a contingency? Is it an acknowledgement? Or is it an amendment? So go ahead and think that one over. Come up with your answer. All right, you guys figure it out? Correct answer for this one is a contingency. That's right, a contingency. So, what is a contingency? Well, contingency clause is considered one of the most important purchase contract provisions for a potential buyer. So, a contingency is a future event or circumstance which is possible but cannot be predicted with certainty. So, in this instance, specifically for this question, the married couple intends to purchase the property, but only if they can qualify for a mortgage loan at a reasonable rate. That is a contingency. Get it? Cool. All right, next one. 89. An item on the property that is installed by the tenant and are related to the tenant's businesses are called implements, easements, trade fixtures, or just fixtures. All right, think that one over, come up with the answer, and I'll be back in a couple seconds. Okay, did you guys come up with an answer? Hopefully. Correct answer for this one is trade fixtures. That's right, trade fixtures. So now a fixture is a physical property that is permanently attached to a property. However, trade fixtures refer to items installed in connection with a business. So again, you see right here it says tenant's business. That would be a trade fixture. So an example of that would be like stoves or refrigerators in a restaurant. Get it? Great. All right, next question. 90. All right. A double net lease is a rental agreement where two additional costs will be added to your base rent. Yearly taxes are doubled, but rent is cheaper. Three or more additional costs will be added to your base rent, or two tenants will split the rent. All right. Think that one over. Come with your answer. All that good stuff. Alrighty, did you guys figure it out? Correct answer for this one is 2 additional costs will be added to your base rent. So simple as that. Double net lease when 2 additional costs will be added to your base rent. Usually these are taxes and insurance costs. All right, next question. 91. The highest form of real estate ownership that is recognized by law in which the owner can enjoy the property to its fullest extent is an estate at will, fee simple to feasible, fee simple absolute, or a life estate. So think that one over. All right, did you guys figure it out? Correct answer for this one is the fee simple absolute. That's right. I think a good way of remembering this is just absolute. When you hear the words absolute, think of like, absolute authority, absolute power, absolute ownership, the highest form. That's what that is. A fee simple absolute, or fee simple for short, is an estate in land. It is the highest form of real estate ownership that is recognized by law in which the owner can enjoy the property to its fullest extent and is only limited by government powers, which, we talked about before. Fee simple absolute is the greatest interest in a partial land that one can possibly own. Fee simple estate has unlimited duration and can be passed on to heirs. There we go. All right, next question. Ad valorem gives us 4 options. Property value derived from assessment value, according to value, added value, or just value. Ooh, interesting. All right, so think that one over. All right, you guys figure it out? Okay, so ad valorem, what does that mean? Well, that means according to value. It's actually Latin for according to value. But it's super important to understand because ad valorem, like, it comes up on the exam all the time. They want you to know this. It's just one of those terms that you need to know. But yeah, the most application of ad valorem taxes is property tax. All right, next question. All right, 93. Joint tenants with a right of survivorship means if one owner dies, that owner's family has an interest in the property and can absorb it. If one owner dies, the owner's interest in the property will pass to the surviving owner or owners. If one owner dies, the other owner must sell his half and they divide the interest among themselves. Or co-owners have unequal interest in the property. So, figure out what the answer for that one is. I'll give you guys a couple of moments. All right, you guys figure it out? It means if one owner dies, the owner's interest in the property will pass to the surviving owner. So the correct answer will be this one. So when a property is owned by joint tenants, the interest of the deceased owner automatically gets transferred to the remaining survivors. For example, if there was like 3 tenants that own a house, one of them dies, the 2 remaining would each obtain 1/2 share of the property. That is called the right of survivorship. All right, 94. In common law, a deed is any legal instrument in writing which passes, affirms, or confirms an interest, right, or property, and that is signed, attested, delivered, and in some jurisdictions sealed. It is commonly associated with transferring title to property. Within deeds, covenants are property listings or values, agreements or promises, forms of money or payment, or types of property. Alrighty, so think that one over. Alrighty. Hopefully you guys were paying attention earlier. It's agreements or promises. Remember we were talking about covenants earlier? So yeah, covenants are agreements or promises with indeed. Luckily you guys lucked out there because earlier we were talking about that. So hopefully you got that one. But yeah, that's the case for that. As I mentioned earlier, a warranty deed can include 6 forms of covenants, and they're just legally binding promises and warranties. All right, 95. Richard is renting property from Becky. Richard is on a month-to-month lease agreement. This past month, he did not pay his rent. Richard's interest would be classified as an estate for years, an estate of periodic tenancy, an estate of sufferance, or an estate at will. All right, so think it over. Come up with a good answer for that one. Alrighty, the correct answer for this one is estate at sufferance. Because guess what? Becky is suffering. Yes, Becky is suffering because she's not getting paid. That's how you remember that. An estate of sufferance is when a tenant who occupies property and their rights have expired to the said property. So if they're not paying or, things like that, that would be an estate at sufferance. All right, 96. Government power is the constitutional authority and inherent power of a state to adopt and enforce laws and regulations to promote and support public health, safety, morals, general welfare. A cheat is a cheat is when a property owner dies and leaves no proper documented inheritance plan, when the property ownership reverts to the government, when a property owner dies and leaves no property documented inheritance plan, the property ownership reverts to his or her heirs, or when a property owner sells their property and the local government gets a portion of the sale, or when a property owner sells their property and the government gets a portion of the sale. So go ahead and think that one over, come up with your answer. Alrighty. Did you guys come up with it? It's the first option. So when a property owner dies and leaves no proper inheritance plan, the property then reverts to the government. So by definition, that's what a cheat is. And basically, a cheat just ensures that a property always has ownership. Which is more the reason it's critical to have a will, or when you're purchasing property, you establish a clear right to survivorship. All right, next question. Surface rights are 4 options: the rights to the trees, ferns, and other plants, the rights to use any rock, soil, or hard earth, the rights to use surface of the earth, or the rights to use the natural resources lying below the earth. All right, so think that one over. All right, this one's pretty straightforward, pretty easy one. It's the rights to use the surface of the earth. So remember earlier we were talking about subsurface rights. That was obviously resources below. When you think sub, think of below. And regular surface rights is, just the rights to use the surface of the earth. All right, 98. In real estate, a deed is best defined as a written legal document by which ownership of real estate is conveyed from one party to another, a declaration of insurance, or I'm sorry, a declaration or insurance that one will do a particular thing or that a particular thing will happen, a written promise to one person from another, or a written will signed by a lawyer. All right, so I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to come up with that one. All right, did you guys come up with it? Hopefully. Correct answer is the first option. It's a written legal document in which ownership of real estate is conveyed from one party to another. That's a deed. It's as simple as that. But for a deed to be legal, obviously it must include the identification of a grantor and grantee and the adequate description of the property. All right, 99. All of the following will void an offer except is it A, a death of an offerer before the offer is accepted, B, cancellation of the offer before it's accepted, C, a counteroffer by the offeree, or D, an offer from a third party. So think about that one. Give you guys some opportunity to think about it, come up with your answer. Okay, did you guys come up with it? The correct answer for this one is the fourth option, an offer from a third party. That is not going to void an offer. An offer from a third party does not affect someone else's offer, obviously. A counteroffer by the offeree would affect an offer, however, as well as the cancellation, um, as a cancellation or death of an offer before the offer is accepted. So, to make a long story short, again, this one, that would void an offer. Cancellation would, as well as counteroffer. So A, B, and C, those all would void an offer. However, an offer from third party, that's not going to. No, of course not. All right, last question, question 100. What is the key difference between a less than freehold estate and a freehold estate? All right, is it location, time, rights, or money? So going to give you guys an opportunity to pause here, think it over, all that good stuff. Alrighty, did you guys come up with it? Hopefully. Correct answer for this one is time. Yes. So you might think it's rights, but it's time. So, and here's why. So the key difference between leasehold estate and freehold estate is a limitation of time. Think about it. Freehold estate is a state in which you have an exclusive right to enjoy the possession of the property for an undefined length of time, while a leasehold estate is a state held by one who rents property or leases property for a period of time. Do you see the difference? So that's the way that one works. Super important to understand, super important to get. But yeah, that's that. All right. So guess what? We did it. We went through 100 questions together. Boy, that was intense. I did mess up a couple times, so I apologize. It was pretty long. I think we're going on a couple hours now, but I did mess up one question, which actually it gives me an opportunity to show you guys what happens when you guys finish our exam on our site. So it basically shows you, I got one incorrect. It shows me my score, all that good stuff. And then if I want to take the exam again, I can. Not, and take the exam again. So pretty much, yeah. I mean that went good for me. I hope it went good for you guys. If you have any questions, comments, stuff like that, please leave them down below. Like I said, we're probably gonna do these videos yearly now, because the first one was such a success. And if you haven't watched the first one already, I do recommend you guys do. The first one has more questions, but again, I just wanted to randomize the questions this time, do them again, and throw in some new ones. So there was some new questions, there were some old questions in this one, but you know again, all this stuff is going to show up on the exam, all these topics. So it's super important that you guys study it all, master it all, you know become experts, as they say. So, yeah. But if you guys do want to, guess what? If you guys do want to take the exam, of course, you don't have to wait until I release another video. Feel free to go to our website, realestatelicensewizard.com. On there, we have access to all these exams, as well as tons of other resources. Our blog is filled with stuff. We have exam tips, everything you need to know to pass the real estate exam. Seriously. We also have a prep course now where you can take, and it covers all the exam topics that you need to know. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. That's my big spiel. All that good stuff. If you guys haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do. It really helps out the channel. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you guys for spending so much time for me today. I know it was a couple hours of your time, and hopefully you guys got some value out of it. Thank you guys so much. As always, this is Zach from realestatelicensewizard.com. Make today magical.